Join me, I am your host Dreadwing. Dive into the world of magic and explore the most stories full of wonder, fantastical delights. The lights.
Chapter 41. The Ritual. Zeke was called in the next morning. He was tired and irritated, but he couldn't say no. And for some reason, he had a feeling that this was urgent. He entered the science facility and was practically forced to stay awake as scientists and generals were practically running around in a panic, trying to make sense of data and the current situation, which no one told him about. Zeke spotted Commander Magarth and walked over to him as the man was yelling at another scientist. "Sir," Zeke saluted. "There's no time for formalities." Magarth shouted, "We are at risk of losing the colossal titan." Zeke had to take a couple of minutes to process that. What? Something happened, Magarth explained. "The colossal titan is completely out of control. Some of our scientists are injured. Damn it, Calvi will kill me." Zeke froze in fear. "Commander, what did you do?" Magarth was terrified, but he tried to keep bravado and didn't respond. Magarth dash. "What is the meaning of this?" A voice spoke. Everyone tensed in fear as they saw Calvi walking up to them with anger written on his face. "Sir dash. I want an explanation," Calvi ordered, "now." "Paradis. Wall Cena." Optimus observed Hanji delicately creating the modified version of the Thunder Spear in his bipedal mode. She managed to attach the wire of liquefied energon to the end of the metal before carefully placing it through the metal tube. She attached the wiring on the bottom of the dark metal tip before screwing the tip onto the tube. Hanji looked at her work and smiled. "What do you think?" Hanji asked. "The Prime, an energon-powered Thunder Spear, should pack twice the punch when triggered. Does it not have the same issue as the regular Thunder Spear?" Optimus asked. Hanji sighed as she delicately placed the spear on the table. "It does. It still requires it to be launched at a short range. If the Energon Thunder Spear is more reactive than the regular one, everyone would be caught up in the explosion if it's used. Maybe I could make the string longer so it give more time for the user to flee. But it could also give more time for the Titan Shifter to remove the spear from the location it was shot at. Maybe crushing it while trying to remove it will trigger an explosion." "You've still done impressive work," Optimus praised. Hanji smiled at the comment. "I really appreciate that, especially coming from you, but for the time being, the Energon Thunder Spear won't be used. Just the regular Thunder Spear. Although, Energon Thunder Spear sounds like a mouthful. Perhaps Energon's Spear works just as well," Optimus suggested. "Energon's Spear it is," Hanji agreed as she packed the equipment away. "Let's head back to the campsite." Optimus transformed into his alt mode and opened the door to the driver's seat. Hanji climbed inside and put on the seat belt before Optimus closed his door and drove towards Cena's gate. "Any word from Megatron?" Hanji asked. "No," Optimus replied. "I do believe his is still trying to negotiate a day off away from Marley's military base. If he succeeds, he should be able to come back to Paradis weekly. Oh, what I would pay to see Megatron struggling to pretending to be a human." Hanji smiled wickedly, sucking up to a boss and wanting to murder them at the same time. "The ultimate dilemma for that jackass." Hanji, Optimus scolded. "Come on," Hanji exclaimed, "you're telling me that you don't want to see that." "I am not going to respond to that," Optimus answered. "Denial is very unbecoming of you," Hanji proclaimed as she leaned forward on the wheel. She turned her attention to the window and saw many of the denizens of Cena waving to the Titan and the commander. Hanji smiled and waved back. "You do good work," Hanji told Optimus. "As do you," Optimus told her. Hanji laughed at the thought. "A lot of the credit really goes to you guys. Honestly, where would we be without you?" Hanji dash. "I mean it," Hanji cut off. "Trost, Annie, the coup, the elimination of the Titans on the island. I doubt the coup and the elimination of the Titans would be successful without your direction," Optimus told her. "You're smart. You would have figured it out," Hanji reasoned. "Yet I struggle to get a simple tracking device to work," Optimus retorted. Well, tech is not your strong suit. Hanji smiled as she patted the wheel. I would like to get my hands on Mali technology, but I don't want to seem to be coming off as desperate. The last thing that we need is to play right into the restorationists' hands when we don't really know how they want to get their exact goal. We've had to be cautious around them. As you should, Optimus agreed. Thankfully, they are cooperating, Hanji said before sighing, unlike the Malians. It stems from their beliefs and ideology, Optimus reasoned. Yeah, Hanji trailed off, but they say some really nasty stuff. Somehow it makes me miss the scorn the Survey Corps faced after returning from a failed expedition. There is nothing we can truly do to change their minds, Optimus declared. They insult us, but many of their most brutal ones are directed at you, Hanji informed. Leave it be, Optimus told her. Optimus, it's vicious, Hanji said with venom in her voice. They call you a machine. A lifeless husk. A drone that follows orders of demon. That's not okay. When we first met, you wanted to study me for experimentation, Optimus spoke. Hanji felt guilty and leaned her head on Optimus's window. At first, yes, but it wasn't out of malice or venom or hatred. I've never met anyone like you before. You're a living being from beyond the stars, of course I'd be invested in that. You're not just a titan. You're a living person with emotions and feelings. Maybe we deserve to be treated like devils, but you don't. Hanji placed her thumb on the Autobot symbol. I don't get how someone like you would still stay with us after everything we now know. Hanji, whatever they say, I know for a fact is a lie, Optimus declared. The history's accurate, Hanji retorted. But you are not them, Optimus declared. You are not your ancestors. You are human. I see goodness in all of you. I only hope that one day, the humans of this world will see you as I do. Hanji wanted to cry and felt tear brimming. She quickly wiped them away before smiling. You sap, Hanji chuckled. I'm really sorry for the way I act and treating you like an experiment. You mean well, Optimus reassured. Hanji smiled with relief as she leaned back in the chair. He's such a kind person. She watched as the gate of Wall Sena opened. She just hoped that there was some hope by the end of this for everyone. Mali. Berthold could only clutch his head in pain as he sat up in his holding cell. He couldn't think properly. He couldn't see properly. All he could hear were the voices in his head. Just loud screams of panic and chaos. It was so blinding he couldn't stand it. The commanders could only watch as Berthold groaned and writhed in pain on the floor of his confines. They actually have to chain him to the wall, something Berthold didn't seem to recognize. He seemed focused on the pain in his own body. He attacked and injured how many? Calvi demanded. He killed one and injured another, Magarth explained in fear. The only thing I could think of at the time was to shoot him to get him to stop. You're lucky your foolish shot didn't kill him. Calvi hissed. Sir, we can't wait any longer. The head scientist explained, we need to transfer the powers of the colossal titan over to another Eldian, now. He's sporadic. Unpredictable. And his blood dash. What about his blood ? Exclamation point close quote Calvi demanded. It's all dead. The head scientist shouted, all of his cells have been destroyed and there's been no activity. The fact that he's survived this long is a miracle, but we cannot keep doing this. We will lose the colossal titan at this rate. Zeke could only watch with fear and pity for Berthold. He knew that Dark Hennigan would have negative effects on Berthold, but he never imagined this. He never imagined that Berthold would suffer like this. What would Reiner and Annie think? Wait, Annie. Commander, may I make a suggestion? Zeke asked. Maybe Berthold could see Annie and Reiner. Some familiarity might bring Berthold's sanity back. Even just for a moment. We're already losing the colossal titan, Calvi retorted. We can't lose the armored and female titan. They can remain behind the glass, Zeke suggested. We just have to try. There might be something that Berthold is seeing that we don't know about. Let them see him before he's transferred over. Calvi thought it over. Give them 5 minutes to talk to him. Prep them ahead of time. I will personally talk to Porco about the transfer. The transfer must be conducted as soon as possible. We'll do it by tonight. So soon? Magarth questioned. The scientists are right, Calvi proclaimed, and as evident by the state of Berthold Hoover, we can't risk it. Calvi turned to his men. Prepare the ceremony. Yes, sir, they saluted before dispersing. Zeke walked over to Calvi as he stared at Berthold. Should I bring in Reiner and Porco? Zeke asked. I'll personally talk to Porco, Calvi stated. You bring Reiner. Zeke nodded his head in understanding. Paradis. Optimus and Hanji arrived at the military base. Optimus let Hanji out of his alt mode before activating his holoform. The two walked through the camp, passing through the Mali prisoners. Hanji noticed that they were whispering before they saw him. She kept face as they glared at the both of them. She turned to attention to Optimus and saw that his focus was ahead. They arrived at the main tent and entered, and they were surprised to see Nyankapan talking to Levi with an architecture plan on the table. "What's going on?" Hanji asked. Nyankapan tensed and stood up. "Kid was just sharing a new plan," Levi answered. "Plan?" Optimus questioned. "A harbor," and Nyankapan explained as he showed the two of them the plans. Hanji looked over the plans and smiled. "We can dock ships here. Like the one Mali used to use when bringing Eldians to the island. We can use the ships we got to connect to others at sea." Nyankapan was startled. "That's right. It's a way for you to connect with the world." "That's amazing." Hanji smiled. "Doesn't really do us good when the entire world hates us," Levi reasoned. "Then we will find a way for them to change their perspective," Optimus proclaimed before looking at Nyankapan, "Thank you for sharing this information with us." "Of course," Nyankapan said. "By the way, where's Yelena?" Hanji asked. Yelena thought it would be nice to show the other Survey Corps members what types of food we have, and Nyankapan explained. "Oh, what types of food?" Hanji asked in curiosity. "It looks gross," Levi proclaimed. "This is food?" Connie questioned at the food presented to them. "This must be your first time having seafood," Yelena surmised before gesturing to the chef. "Nicolo is a master chef and an expert on Mali cuisine." Nicolo grumbled as he stirred the pot. "Damn it. Look, if you Eldians don't like it, then don't eat it. You guys dash." Nicolo was shocked when Sasha grabbed the lobster and dug her teeth straight through the cooked crustacean. "Sasha, stop," Jean told her. "No fair. You gotta share," Connie shouted. "Nicolo, you're a genius," Sasha praised with tears coming down her cheeks. Nicolo blushed in response. Look, there's a cleaner way to eat that. And eat slowly. Don't scarf it down." The Survey Corps began to pick from the feast before sitting down and eating. Sasha continued to cry her eyes out at the taste of the food. Yelena turned her attention to see Hanji walking over to them with Optimus in his human form. "This looks great." Hanji smiled. "And interesting. So this is food from the ocean." "That's what seafood is," Nicolo grumbled. "I won't be able to join you," Hanji told the Survey Corps. "I have plans we need to discuss. Can I just take some to go?" "Go right ahead," Yelena answered as she gestured to the table. Hanji moved to grab a plate, while Nicolo turned to Optimus and glared at him. "Are you going to eat something or what?" Nicolo demanded. The Survey Corps turned their attention to Optimus when they heard the question being asked. "My kind does not consume organic food," Optimus answered. "This form is merely for interaction." Nicolo rolled his eyes as he attended to the pot once more. "I do thank you for the offer," Optimus said. Nicolo was startled at Optimus's response before attending to the food once more. "Sure." The Survey Corps watched as Hanji left them with a plate of food with Optimus by her side. "They've been saying harsh things about Optimus," Jean commented. "Can we really do anything about it?" Armin asked. "I don't think so," Jean answered. "I think the last thing we need is a fight. Especially since we're supposed to try and create allies." "They called Optimus a lifeless husk," Armin retorted. "Iran's not going to let that go." "Guess it's a good thing that we're keeping Iran away from them right now," Connie commented. Yelena raised an eyebrow at that. "Then where was he?" Iran was in one of the tents by himself, looking at the blue veins in his arms. It was acting up again, and he didn't want his friends to see him like this. "You look terrible," someone commented. Iran looked up to see Ima enter the tent with her arms crossed. "They're giving seafood," Ima informed, "and Optimus is back." "Yelena is over there," Iran retorted. "They don't really want me to interact with her and the other restorationists." Ima hummed in response. "I can talk to them just fine. Maybe my Titan power isn't as valuable as yours." Iran shrugged at that. Ima sat down on the chair across from Iran as he continued to look at his veins. "Does it hurt?" Ima asked. "Does what hurt?" Iran asked her. "The stuff in your veins," Ima clarified. "No," Iran answered. "It's a strange feeling, but it's not pain." Iran took a deep breath, and the blue veins receded. Hanji said it's mainly in my spine and eyes. At first it spread based on how I was feeling emotionally. Now I think I got a better handle on it. Iran looked at Emma. Why do you ask? I'm thinking about taking an injection, Emma admitted. I thought you didn't want to do it, Iran recalled. I still don't, Emma agreed, but the world is so advanced compared to 60 years ago, and Marley's going to be ruthless. If I want to protect Historia, then I have to try. Emma, we still don't know long-term effects, Iran reasoned. I don't want you to get hurt, because we don't know everything yet. I'm the same as you, Emma reminded. I have less than 8 years left. What do I have left to lose? Historia, Iran answered. If Historia lives by the end of this, I don't care, Emma shrugged. I love her too much not to try. How can you do that? Iran asked. Emma raised an eyebrow at that. Do what? How can you live this life of normality? Iran asked. Get married, live a life, even though we're both going to die soon. Doesn't it bother you? The prospect of leaving your friends? Leaving Historia? Emma sighed at the question. I've always lived for someone else. Never for myself. It was only a couple of years ago that I finally got to live the life I wanted. I won't live by the end of this, but I want to live as selfishly as possible. I want to enjoy the time I have left. To live and love the people that have been by my side. Brutally honest, Iran commented. When you've been wandering around for 60 years for trying to save someone else, it puts things into perspective, Emma said. I don't think I can think like you can. Iran admitted. By the way, Emma began, what happened with you and Historia? You didn't try anything with her, did you? Iran shook his head as a memory of Optimus's corpse flashed through his mind. I just needed to confirm something, that's all. Marley. Porco was escorted into the empty war room, with only Calvi sitting in one of the chairs. Calvi was going over some of the data the scientists had given him. He lifted his head to see Porco, and waved to the other soldiers to leave them alone. Porco watched them leave before saluting his commanding officer. How may I be of service, Commander? Your training with Matthew is officially over, Calvi declared. Porco was shocked at the proclamation. With all due respect, I thought this was to prepare me for the demons on Paradise Island. The colossal titan is at risk of being lost because of the flying titan, Calvi explained, the same titan who took your brother. Whatever is in his body has clearly affected Berthold to the point where he can no longer function properly. He is at risk of dying, and we cannot lose the colossal titan, especially in the middle of a war. Is there any chance to save him? Porco asked. No, Calvi answered bluntly, we know nothing about this dark energon, and from what I've seen with Berthold, we cannot longer continue to tamper with it. The colossal titan matters more. Porco nodded in understanding. There wasn't much he could say in this situation. The decision was final, but he didn't want to eat Berthold. He didn't want Berthold's life to end so soon. When will the transfer begin? Porco asked. Tonight, Calvi answered. So soon? Porco asked, isn't there preparation that needs to happen? We can't wait, Calvi declared as he stood up. Now more than ever, you need to put your feelings aside for your country. You are an honorary Marleyan, and you will serve Marley with pride. I understand, Porco responded. I will inherit the colossal titan, and serve my country. I will help win this war like all the others, and I avenge what we have lost in Paradis. Good, Calvi said, you will be escorted to the ceremonial room. We will get everything ready for the transfer. Meanwhile, Reiner was taken below ground with Commander Magarth in front of him. Zeke brought him over here, but when Magarth showed up, Zeke took his leave. He didn't know where exactly he was being taken, and he was nervous. Maybe the commanders had enough of him. Maybe because he took blame for the failure of Paradis, they were going to transfer his power as punishment. When the two of them got to the lower floor, Reiner was surprised to see Annie being escorted by 2 other guards, but he immediately wanted to throw up. The energon was still prominent in her eyes and right arm. He could see some light blue veins in her other arm and legs, but it wasn't as bad as her eyes and her arm. In addition, he could see bags under her eyes. She looked tired and sad. She was struggling to keep herself up, but was forcing herself to stay up. Hey, Annie, Reiner whispered. Annie glanced up at him, but continued to keep her head down. Reiner then turned in his attention to his commander. What is going on, sir? Reiner asked. Magarth didn't say anything as he continued to walk forward. Reiner and Annie were forced to follow, and they both kept their heads down. Magarth stopped, forcing the two of them to stop in front of a glass window. You have 5 minutes, Magarth declared as he tapped the window. Reiner and Annie looked inside the glass, waiting for something to move. They gasped and stepped back as Berthold's corrupted form tried to claw at them, but it was pulled back by the chains. They could only watch in horror as Berthold thrashed and writhed in anger as his eye was glowing purple. Half of his body was charred a dark purple, and his hair on the charred side was all gone. Berthold! Reiner exclaimed, what happened? Annie recalled the fight she had with the Flying Titan and grimaced. Dark Enigan. The Flying Titan did this to him. Can't you fix this? Reiner pleaded to Magarth. We've tried, Magarth Millie answered. Berthold, it's us. Reiner called out, please. Berthold seemed to calm down, but he still thrashed and glared. You're a warrior, like me. Reiner continued, like Annie. Please, come back to us. Annie placed her hand on the glass as tears brimmed in her eyes. Berthold. Berthold glared at them, before his intense gaze turned into one of recognition. The purple veins in his body began to recede, but the charred skin was still there. Reiner, Annie, Berthold spoke. Berthold, what happened? Reiner pleaded, why are you like this? The Flying Titan, Berthold spoke, he shot me all that time ago and it's getting worse. But Marley's been helping you, right? Reiner pleaded, treating you to Ash. It doesn't matter, Berthold breathed, it's not going away. We have to try. Reiner proclaimed, Berthold dash. All I hear are voices, Berthold spoke, all I see is darkness and monsters. I can't feel anything in half of my body. Annie felt her heart shatter as tears of hopelessness fell down Berthold's face. I can give you more of my spinal fluid. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you alive. All I hear is his voice, Berthold spoke, it's like he wants to destroy my soul. I think I won't make it much longer. Reiner shook his head. No, no. 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 We'll save you. We'll save you. Reiner banged his fists against the glass. Berthold. 5 minutes are up, Magarth declared, prepared to transport Berthold for the ceremony. Ceremony? Annie questioned as Reiner looked at Magarth in horror. Berthold is no longer equipped for combat, Magarth proclaimed. Not only is he unable to fight, he attacked and killed a Marleyan scientist while beating 2 others. Berthold violated our laws. He is to be stripped of his honorary Marleyan status, and his power will be transferred over to Porco Galliard. It wasn't him, Reiner pleaded, you have to understand that it wasn't him. It was the Flying Titan. That demon did this to him. The decision is final, Magarth stated coldly as Marleyan soldiers moved to grab the weak Berthold. The ceremony will commence tonight. No. No. Reiner begged as he saw Berthold dragged out of his cell. Reiner tried to grab him, but 2 other Marleyan soldiers grabbed him and pulled him back. Reiner struggled to reach for Berthold, but his hand barely grazed Berthold's own. Berthold, no. Reiner yelled, Berthold. Bring him back. Berthold. Annie could only watch with sadness as Berthold was dragged away. Berthold managed to focus his gaze onto Annie, and he gave her a sad smile. Annie's mouth opened agape, and tears fell down her cheeks as Berthold mouthed 3 words. I love you. Annie could only turn away as tears began to fall, while Reiner continued to scream in horror. There was nothing that they could do. Megatron heard a knock on his door and shut the book about the ocean in his hand. Megatron placed the book on the floor and stood up. He walked over and opened the door to see Commander Calvi standing in front of his door. Look, I already trained the kids, can I just have the rest of the day to myself? Megatron demanded in his other vernacular. I have some news for you, Calvi proclaimed. For starters, Porco Galliard will no longer be training with you, and another Eldian will be taking his place under training. Megatron's interest was now piqued. Porco insisted on training with me for weeks. Why the sudden change? Porco Galliard will now be the new holder of the Colossal Titan, Calvi answered. We intend to do the ceremony tonight. Megatron raised an eyebrow at that. I thought the power of the Titans lasted 13 years. Seems the Flying Titan negated that, Calvi declared. We can't risk losing the Colossal Titan at such a crucial time. Thanks for the tip, Megatron said as he was about to close the door. We do need you on site, Calvi stated. Megatron opened the door once more. We will be using the Enigan serum, and in the event Porco gets out of hand as a pure Titan, we need you as protection, Calvi explained, or at the very least, to put him down. Megatron blinked in response before exiting his room and shutting the door. Lead the way. Later that night. Zeke could only watch behind the glass of the ceremonial room as Berthold was being placed in his chains on the higher platform. All the commanders and scientists were there to watch the ceremony happen. They were just waiting on Porco and Commander Calvi to be present. The door opened behind the commanders, and Zeke turned to see Calvi walking in with Matthew right behind him. Zeke stared at Matthew in confusion, but he merely mouthed protection before turning his attention to the ceremony room. Zeke turned back to see Porco enter the ceremony room in the traditional robes and grimaced. It was unfortunate that it had to be this way. Porco looked up at Berthold with determination and sadness. Berthold looked resigned and defeated. He looked so tired and worn out. There was nothing that he could do anymore except for this. Berthold, if you can hear me, I don't blame you for Marcel. Porco spoke. I'm glad you got to return home. I'll avenge you, I'll avenge Marcel in your name. I'll defeat the Flying Titan, and I'll bring back the Jaws Titan. Zeke turned to see Matthew roll his eyes, and felt the need to punch him in the face. Matthew did this to Berthold. To a child, no less. Porco lifted the syringe, the new syringe filled with the new Titan serum. It was filled with the blue substance that came from the metal Titan. He didn't want to administer this to himself, but he had no choice. If he wanted to avenge Berthold and Marcel, then he had to. Porco turned the needle onto himself and injected the serum into his arm. The commanders and Zeke covered their eyes to the blinding blue lightning. Zeke saw that Matthew was squinting his eyes, but nothing else. Berthold seemed to gain consciousness and his vision focused to see a Titan forming in front of him. Berthold gasped in fear, realizing that he was about to die. He didn't get to say goodbye. He didn't get to say goodbye to Peak, Zeke, Porco, his parents. The 104th. Wait. He still had so much to say. Berthold noticed something out of the corner of his eye, behind the glass of the ceremony room. He saw in horror those eyes. Those same red eyes that tormented his friends in amusement. It couldn't be. Wait. Please. Stop. Berthold pleaded as the Titan formed completely. Berthold tried to pull out of his chains as the Titan took notice of him. It grabbed him and pulled him out of the chains, ripping off his arms and legs in the process. Berthold screamed in agony as the Titan moved to devour him. Annie. Rainer. Berthold screamed in horror before being devoured. The commanders watched with a grim expression as the Titan chewed on Berthold's body. Zeke had to look away from the sight, not wanting to see the person he grew fond of being eaten. When the Titan finished feasting off of Berthold, the Titan collapsed on the ground, and the form began to evaporate. As that happened, the scientists and the other commanders began to leave the safe room to enter the actual ceremonial room. When they entered the ceremonial room, Porco pulled himself out of the evaporating Titan form, taking large breaths as marks were left on his face. Porco opened his eyes to reveal the blue Energon. The blue veins began to spread throughout his entire body before receding into his spine. Megatron watched the commanders clap at the success of the ceremony, before turning his attention upward to the arms and legs, turning to dust in the chains they were left in. Megatron noted that Zeke was looking at him with contempt, but didn't bother with it. But what really caught his attention was Magarth standing next to him, and the strange expression on Magarth's face. Was he upset? You don't seem that surprised, Calvi remarked as he walked up to Megatron. It's not the worst thing I've seen, Megatron admitted. Really? Calvi questioned. But from what I've seen, Megatron began, it seemed better to let him die. Calvi was surprised while Zeke felt himself get angry once again. Assist Porco, Calvi ordered the scientists. Megatron watched as Porco was helped to his feet before turning to Calvi. I'd like to turn in for the night. Calvi shrugged and excused Megatron for the night. Megatron turned to leave, passing Zeke as he glared at him. Paradis. Armin was present with the other Survey Corps members and Optimus in his holoform about the harbor plan on the table. Yelena and 2 other restorationists were present, but Iran wasn't in the room. Armin guessed it was a precautionary measure, but he wasn't sure. He couldn't deny that he was excited for this new invention, at least for the island. It probably wasn't a shock to Optimus, but for them, it was exciting. He also noted that Hanji and Levi weren't that shocked by the plans. Maybe because they say it earlier. By the way, Nyankapan, why's your skin so dark? Sasha asked with curiosity. And Nyankapan smiled in response. Well, the one who created us must have thought. Wouldn't it be interesting to have different types of people? The subject of Ema that can turn into titans are just as important. We all exist because he decided. Who decided? Armin asked. The one who gave the power of the titans to Ema. In other words, God, Anyankapan answered. Armin noted that Yelena was looking at Anyankapan with disappointment, causing the man to change his tune. The excitement he once had was gone, replaced with plain embarrassment. But we're all free to believe and think what we want, Anyankapan stated. Armin then noticed Optimus's expression and blinked in response. Optimus's demeanor usually had the same stoic and authoritative figure, but his eyes were full of hope and disbelief. Was Optimus moved by Anyankapan's words? So when do we start construction? Jean asked. In about a week, Hanji answered. We have to bring supplies and workers. Perfect, Yelena smiled. This project will be a success. Later, Anyankapan placed the plans with all of the other tools provided by the restorationists. He wasn't sure if he was going to get in trouble with Yelena later on. She looked disappointed with him. Yelena has always been like that, but was he going to get into trouble for voicing his beliefs? Wasn't that what the restorationists stood for? Anyankapan, a deep voice spoke. Anyankapan tensed as he turned to see Optimus Prime in the fake form walking up to him. May I speak with you? Optimus asked him. Anyankapan swore to himself. Yelena stated that they weren't supposed to really speak with the Metal Titans. Maybe it was because their existence shattered her beliefs, or maybe it was because he couldn't be trusted. What did this Titan even want with him? Optimus noticed Anyankapan's tense expression and sighed. Apologies, I do not mean to scare you. I just wanted to have a small conversation. Conversation ? Anyankapan hesitantly asked. Optimus nodded his head. About what? Anyankapan asked. About what you said earlier in regards to Sasha's question. I just wanted to say that I found your words to be rather profound, Optimus declared. The teen looked at Optimus in surprise before blinking and rubbing his eyes in disbelief, trying to process what the Titan said. An intelligent being from another world found his words to be profound. What? Which one ? Anyankapan hesitantly asked. About a being greater than us wanting to create different people, Optimus elaborated. Oh. Anyankapan exclaimed, not expecting that response. Like I said, we're all free to think what we want. I am just agreeing with your statement, Optimus said, but it seems like Yelena may not agree with you. The teen sighed. Yelena has been through a lot. We all have. I can't blame her for not thinking the same way I do. I suppose, Optimus hummed in response, but I believe it to be a beautiful concept. I was aware that life existed outside of my world, but one never as complex as Earth or this one. We do not have a variety of animals or organic life, but worlds like these are full of it. And they coexist in an intricate, balanced world. I am a being made of metal and you are a being made of carbon. And here we are, working together to create a better future. Anyankapan smiled brightly. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Optimus gave a small smile. It is reason like these that I fight for freedom and peace. Every sentient being has their own sense of free will. They should be allowed to act on it without anyone taking it away from them for reasons unjustified. What about the rest of the world? Anyankapan asked curiously. They do believe that the Eldians are devils. Should they be blamed for something their ancestors did? Or should they be judged by the actions committed now? Optimus asked back. They shouldn't, Anyankapan declared. Children are the future, and they shouldn't be taught the hatred of their parents in the past. The history, yes, but not to hate them. It doesn't solve anything. I am glad that I got to hear your words, Optimus said. Really? ? Anyankapan asked. I figured that a Titan beyond the stars wouldn't really care about what a human would have to say, especially considering the messed up stuff we've done. I have met many humans, both flawed and unpredictable in nature, but I have also seen goodness in them, Optimus proclaimed before looking up at the stars. I may be one of the few who believe in this reality, but I believe that this world can achieve peace. I believe in the possibility of a future where humanity can coexist in peace regardless if they are Marlian or Eldian. Anyankapan was shocked by Optimus's words of wisdom. Optimus noted the expression and folded his hands behind his back. Many would tend to disagree with me, Optimus admitted. My associate thinks negatively of humanity as a whole, but we are all free to think what we believe. I agree with you, Anyankapan spoke. Anyankapan could see a strange expression in Optimus's eyes. Before Optimus could respond, they heard a strange noise from above. Optimus said something he couldn't understand before turning to Anyankapan. I have to meet with the Flying Titan, Optimus explained, but I do hope we can continue to have this conversation another time. Oh, of course, Anyankapan exclaimed, thank you. Optimus deactivated the holoform, allowing Anyankapan to release a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The restorationist placed a hand over his chest and smiled. Someone thought like him. He never really imagined it, but someone believed in his ideology and wanted to continue having a conversation with him. Megatron transformed and landed on the ground near the campsite, causing the Marlians to scream in fear. Megatron growled and rolled his eyes. Quiet. Megatron shouted at them, effectively getting the prisoners to keep their mouths shut. Well, that's one way to keep them quiet, a voice responded. Megatron turned to see Optimus walking up to him with Hanji and Levi on his shoulders. Maybe we should just keep you here to keep them quiet, Hanji smirked. I don't want to be near any of you, Megatron hissed. Or, is Buckethead cranky? Hanji asked in a mocking tone. Megatron growled in response. What happened? Optimus demanded. Megatron rubbed his optics before looking at Hanji and Levi. Did you two have any relationship with Berthold Hoover? Hanji and Levi looked at each other in confusion. We didn't know him personally, Levi answered, we just knew that he was the colossal titan. What happened? Hanji asked in a serious tone. Megatron thought it over before looking over Optimus's shoulder to the humans at the campsite. Do you want the other Survey Corps members present? Hanji and Levi grew uneasy while Optimus's expression turned into one of slight dread. Later, Optimus kept watch on the entrance of the tent, watching for any prying eyes and listening ears. Meanwhile, the Survey Corps remained tense as Megatron crossed his arms. So why did you want to talk to us? Connie asked with hesitation. I'll skip straight to the point, Megatron stated, Berthold Hoover is dead. Optimus shut his eyes at the news, while the survey stared at Megatron in disbelief. That doesn't make any sense, Armin spoke, trying to process the situation. Berthold is supposed to have at least 6 more years. Turns out Dark Energon is a lot more volatile than anticipated, Megatron explained, because Marley doesn't know how to actually counteract it, it's been slowly killing him. I heard it corrupted him to the point where he actively attacked other humans. The power has been transferred over to Porco Galliard in some ritual similar to the one the Queen's father intended on doing. They also decided to use the Energon-based serum. Hanji swore in response. Do we know whether or not the Dark Energon has been transferred to Porco? That's uncertain at the moment, Megatron responded. The power still resides in Marley's hands, so it doesn't make much of a difference anyway. I'll be sure to keep an eye on the situation. Well, good riddance to that bastard, Jean declared. Jean? Sasha yelled at him. You know I'm right. Jean retorted. Brats, shut up, Levi ordered. We don't want anyone else hearing this information just yet. Did Berthold have any last words? Armin asked. Megatron looked Armin in the eyes and sighed. He called out for Lionheart and the Armored One. The Survey Corps looked uneasy and angry all at the same time. Thank you for telling us, Hanji replied. Megatron hummed in response before deactivating the holoform. He's really dead, Mikasa breathed. Meanwhile, Irin just felt unsatisfied. Why didn't he feel satisfied? Berthold, the one responsible for destroying his home, his life, for killing his mother, for everything. Why did this leave such a sour taste in his mouth? Megatron dragged himself through the neutral ship in his bipedal mode before slumping onto the floor. He was tired. Tired of pretending to be a human. Tired of dealing with this whole situation. It was just a human anyway. He was just a pathetic human that he'd hurt in the past. But still, Annie, Rainer, hearing that screaming, hearing that human beg for his life, seeing the broken expressions of the Survey Corps members, he shouldn't feel this way. Why was this bothering him so much? Is that guilt you're feeling? Unicron asked, over a human. Why do you care? Megatron demanded. So you're not even going to deny it anymore, Unicron said. He's dead, Megatron replied. What does it matter? He was a pathetic human, Unicron reminded, sent to destroy the island. Sent to destroy your precious prime. You were already set on killing him when you first arrived. Megatron glared at Unicron as he stood up. I didn't know that my shot would slowly kill him. No, you did, Anikarin retorted. You knew when the prophecy happened. Then you actually tried to kill an innocent human child. You can make the argument that it was collateral, but let's be honest, you would have tried to kill him some other time. And you enjoyed see the reaction of the Prime's disciples when they brought that parasite. This situation is no different. The dark Hennigan inside of you killed that parasite. You should be happy. Now it should be harder to identify you when in Mali. Well, done dash. Enough. Megatron shouted. Anikarin glared at him. I never thought that I would see someone as vile as you feel remorse after all this time. Over an insignificant human. One that you barely knew. Megatron glared at Anikarin as he chuckled. Seems that someone is becoming weak in his time on this twisted planet. I still hate humanity, Megatron swore, and that boy's death doesn't affect me. The only good thing about his death is that you won't have a host to latch onto. I never needed him, Anikarin declared. His power was insignificant compared to mine. You are more valuable to me than him. I will never be your slave again, Megatron growled. We shall see, Anikarin proclaimed as he disappeared from Megatron's line of sight. Megatron slumped against the wall and didn't bother to get up. Exhaustion from the lack of sleep finally got the better of him, and he passed out.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video/gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!